All right, all right. Looks like my mic is working. Let me just double check all this stuff in settings here, folks. Make sure I've got the right mic attached.
Boom. That looks better. Right, headphones attached. Good to go. Good to go. All right. It is Wednesday. It is 7 o'clock. Actually, 7:01 because I'm dicking around here. Excuse my language. Fiddling around here. And it is time for the South Carolina Normal Cannabis Conversation. That happens every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. or thereabouts. All right, let's go ahead and just kind of start the way we normally do. Give it a minute or so, see if we can get a couple of folks to kind of pop on in the room with us, spend a little time with us this evening, find the right banners that I want to click on the buttons, and make sure I've got my links in front of me. All right, last check here. It looks like we are live streaming to Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Everything looks like it's working well. All right, well, let me go ahead and get things kicked off here by starting as we normally do and mentioning that all of our meetings are an environment of education and awareness and are not an open market for the sale, purchase, or distribution of cannabis. We do not encourage or condone illegal behavior of any kind. Also, during the intro period, I usually like to kind of remind folks to follow us on social media. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Um, that way you can click that notification bell and be reminded when we have our podcast coming up. We usually try and post a little notification a couple days before so that you can go ahead and hit the remind me button, and that'll remind you about, I think it's a half hour before it sends me a notification to my phone, um, just in case I forget we're having a meeting that night. So, anyway, last but not least, during our welcome, I do also like to mention right in this period that we ask that you support our sponsors. Visit South Carolina normal.org, scnormal.org, and go to the drop downs. Actually, I think it's one of the first drop downs you will find the sponsor link. Go and support our sponsors. And if you'd like to become a sponsor, go over a little bit to the contact link and send us an email and ask us about sponsorship opportunities. All right, time to click a new button here. Turn that one off. And you know what I did not do? I did not open my program document for the evening. Not that it matters, I didn't fill it out completely, but it kind of keeps me going. There's the highlighted one we're doing tonight. And yeah, I didn't fill out my run of show, but it's all good. We're going to fly by the seat of our pants the way we normally do. All righty, we've got a comment in. Joey's here. Hey, Joey, thank you for being here. Always appreciate you showing up. Love your support, man. Love the support. Tonight, we're going to talk about basically what's going on with the government, with the federal government. I'm trying to sort some things out here. Um, and before I do, because it is now part of the run of show, we're going to start with our first trivia question. I'm going to pull out three. We'll see if we get all three of them. I know last week we didn't do the third one, so that's going to be our first one this week. First trivia question for the night. Are you ready with your comments if you know the answer to the trivia question? This is a knowledge category trivia question. It's a 50-pointer. It's a big one if you're keeping score. I haven't kept score yet. But anyway, if you're keeping score, knowledge. What age group is the fastest growing consumers of marijuana? Is that age group 18 to 35, 35 to 65, or 65 to 100? We'll ask that again. Knowledge category, 50-point question. What age group is the fastest growing consumers of cannabis, of marijuana? Is it the age group 18 to 35, the age group of 35 to 65, or the age group of 65 to 100? Blah, blah, blah. If you'd like to sponsor our trivia questions, again, go to our website, reach out to us through the contact page. I'm not going to promote that too hard tonight. We'll get right to the answer because that's where we've been handling these. Let's see. We've got a couple answers coming in. Let me see what's happening. We are all over the board with our answers from commenters. And we're going to go through that one more time. If anybody else wants to comment, do that while I read it one last time. Knowledge category, 50-point question. What age group is the fastest growing consumers of marijuana? 18 to 35, 35 to 65, or 65 to 100? And the answer is 65 to 100. Kind of surprised me that that is the fastest growing group. I mean, I just turned 65 and I'm not that fast. You'd think there'd be some faster group. Oh, okay, I get it. But yeah, that's a surprise to me that the fastest growing group is actually 65 to 100. Um, Good question. I like that one. Good question. You slip that back in the box. All right. Now, I did not really talk a whole lot about, what did I say? Intro and agenda. Oh, we're going to be talking about what's going on with the review of the cannabis scheduling at federal level. Let me start with the first article. These are all articles from Marijuana Moment that we're going to be looking through tonight. So let me drop this first one down here into the comments and then we'll share it with you on the screen. And I'll also turn off that banner. All right. This one came out 6 days ago, June 15th. Do I want to do a tab? We'll do a window. We'll do that window. There it is. Again, this is an article on Marijuana Moment. Feds aim to finish cannabis scheduling review this year. 2023, 6 months left. Top Biden official tells Marijuana Moment. You know, we've been kind of waiting for a review, see what they say. You know, I mean, of course, the only acceptable answer is to deschedule. I'll bring up some of my reasoning behind that in a moment. But anyway, this is the head of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, is aiming to present Joe Biden with a federal cannabis scheduling decision this year, quote unquote, as agencies work, quote, as quickly as they can, unquote, to complete an administrative review. Secretary Xavier Becerra told Marijuana Moment during a press briefing in Sacramento on Thursday. So that was last Thursday. While Becerra and the other federal officials have previously emphasized that they are working expeditiously, again, more quotes in here, to carry out the cannabis review, which the president directed late last year, there's been a lack of clarity on the specific timeline. Now the secretary has disclosed when he hopes to deliver on the president's directive. The FDA, Food and Drug Administration, under HHS, is carrying out an 8-step scientific review into marijuana to determine whether it should be rescheduled, descheduled, or remain on Schedule 1, which is reserved for the most strictly controlled drugs under the Controlled Substances Act, the CSA. Let me scroll down just a little bit. No, I don't have to scroll down anymore. There's the end of the story. Quote, what I can tell you is that the president instructed, there goes my mouth, us at HHS and the FDA in particular, to take a look at how we treat marijuana to see if we can update our review of marijuana as a drug and how we can make sure how we treat it going forward on the federal level. That doesn't sound right. As a drug and how we can make sure how we treat it going forward on the federal level. Becerra told Marijuana Moment. Quote, places like California have already changed the laws and federal government has not. And so we've been instructed and we're underway with that review as we speak. He said that HHS, along with our other agencies like the Drug Enforcement Administration, the DEA, are working together to try to see if we can give the president an answer that's based on the science and evidence. Stay tuned. We hope to be able to get there pretty soon, hopefully this year. Now, let me go ahead and kind of turn off the share room for the moment. We'll talk about this one just a tad. All right. As they're saying, they're going through a review to see how, I don't know if it's ever been reviewed before. I mean, some of it sounds like, oh, we've reviewed this before, and that's why it's where it is. But I'm not buying it. I'm not buying that if that's what they're trying to imply. Because I like to keep this book handy. The official report of the National Commission on Marijuana and Drug Abuse recommended to Congress and to the president at the time, 1972, that marijuana not be on the controlled substances list, and that simple possession not be criminalized, and that simple transfers and sales, I mean, people would get an ounce and split it 4 ways. So a simple transactions like that for no remuneration, no profit, should also be decriminalized. And that was 1972 by a commission, by a congressional commission, the National Commission on Marijuana and Drug Abuse. So anyway, you have to actually get back to, like, I think page 119 in here. Actually, it's 179, 180 to find the recommendations, but those recommendations are to possession of marijuana for personal use would no longer be an offense, but marijuana possessed in public would remain contraband subject to summary seizure and forfeiture. So basically a decriminalization, no penalization, but they will confiscate it from you if they catch you with it in public. 1972. Okay. Am I ranting? Maybe just a little. Let me see what we got here. We have howdy from Nancy. Howdy, Nancy. Joey's got a hello all. And oh, David gave us a while for the actual answer back there of the 65 to 100 on each of the question. Yeah, so I find that article kind of interesting, especially because, they're talking about we need this review. That been researched, it's been reviewed. All I have to do is get a copy of this book, find it on eBay. Ask me, I'll send them some. But and it'll probably tell them what they need to do and what they need to recommend. I a bit with these articles, and I'm glad that Marijuana Moment did as well. So let me go ahead and click up this next share screen and bring up the next article on this. Congressional Cannabis Caucus, the Congressional Cannabis Caucus leaders react to marijuana scheduling update from top Biden official. Now that's one thing I haven't pushed for a while, but there is the Congressional Cannabis Caucus, and if you have a representative in Congress, we ask you to contact your representative and ask them to join the Congressional Cannabis Caucus. Some may not. I'd have to go and see if there's an actual list of who is part of it. I would believe because Nancy would be part of it, just because she does propose decriminalizing or descheduling, or has proposed descheduling. I would bet there's some others like Lindsey Graham who say, nah, I don't think I want to be part of that group. No, thank you very much. So I guess it depends on the legislator if they want to, but yeah, we do request that, and we have shared action alerts about those in the past. Congressional candidates. So let me go down and read just a little bit of this one to you. I think some of this is kind of interesting. If I grab the right button and slide it down. Congressional marijuana reform leaders said they are encouraged that a top Biden administration official told Marijuana Moment on Thursday that he believes a cannabis scheduling review that he's overseeing could be completed this year. Again, the quote's on this year. In the months since President Joe Biden directed the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Justice Department to carry out an administrative review, advocates and stakeholders have eagerly waited on a status update. Secretary Xavier Becerra finally offered a tentative timeline, saying he hopes to send the president a scheduling decision this year. Yep, we read that in the last. All right. 3 co-chairs of the Congressional Cannabis Caucus weighed in on the news in statements to Marijuana Moment, expressing cautious optimism that the secretary will follow through with action in the coming month. Quote from Earl Blumenauer, I will be disappointed if we cannot make significant progress within the year. Earl Blumenauer said, Representative Blumenauer said, there should be a greater sense of urgency for this long overdue action. Blumenauer also led a letter to Becerra and the Attorney General Merrick Garland in March, along with 15 other bipartisan members of Congress, demanding transparency in the cannabis scheduling review. So that's kind of interesting. And there is a link to that. Oh, let me share the link to this actual article with you. There is a link in the article to the story about that letter demanding transparency in the scheduling review. There we go. All right. The letter said that Biden's scheduling directive represents, quote, an opportunity to make honest assessment of the origins and implications of federal policy. Excuse me. I was laughing at something else. Let me go back. The letter said that Biden's scheduling directive represents an opportunity to make an honest assessment of the origins and implications of federal policy. Yeah, and it is. It does give them an opportunity to make an honest assessment. Adding that marijuana was scheduled based on stigma, not science, and it's time to address marijuana's existing reality as a state-regulated substance. So those are 2 pretty good quotes from that letter. I'm going to have to go back and kind of read the rest of that letter. I was just laughing at honest assessment from the government. So anyway, Representative Dave Joyce, a Republican out of Ohio, told Marijuana Moment on Friday that he's glad to have the support of Secretary Becerra to work on a common sense, extensive review of the scheduling process. And Representative Barbara Lee, a Democrat out of California, made clear that she wants the review to conclude with a determination to remove cannabis from the Controlled Substances Act entirely. Quote from her is, excuse me, federal descheduling is long overdue. We've been pushing the Biden administration to take bold steps to end the war on drugs. I'm hopeful they will. So, some strong language from our legislators. Excuse me. And I mean, because the caucus is bipartisan, we're hoping that that helps to push some of this through a little quicker and give it a good, honest look. I mean, I gotta say that honest assessment. All I got to do is go back to this. Okay. Some people will say, "Hold it! It ain't your grandpa's marijuana nowadays," and I can't deny there's concentrates to look at. But I mean, as far as the plant, sure, it may be that they hybridized some of it, that it does have some higher THC content to it, but there's varying potencies in alcohol, and people can seem to determine the right amount if they're if they wish to. Um, and the fact that you can kill yourself with alcohol, and you can't, as far as I know, smoke too much marijuana to kill yourself. Um, that's that's kind of a whole nother aspect of it, the safety issues and things like that. Uh, Although sometimes I hate to compare to alcohol, but a lot of legislation looks to regulate like alcohol, so it is kind of a good model to follow in that respect. Um, all right, let me kind of take a peek down here. Let's see our time. We're a little bit early for our second trivia question, but we're kind of winding up onto it. So I think I am going to go ahead and do that before I get into the third article that we want to kind of discuss tonight. Came out 2 days ago. All right. Oh, both of these are politics categories. I'm going to grab the higher point one just because I'll save the higher point one till the end. We'll do that on the politics category on our second second trivia question of the night. Second cannabis related trivia question of the night. Again, politics category. This is a 30-point question if you're keeping score. I haven't kept score, but you might be. Quote, just say no, unquote, was a popular anti-drug slogan under what U.S. president's administration? Was it Ronald Reagan, Bill Clinton, or Jimmy Carter? Politics category, 30-point question. Just say no was a popular anti-drug slogan under which U.S. president's administration? Ronald Reagan, Bill Clinton, or Jimmy Carter? Don't forget, if you'd like to sponsor our trivia questions, reach out to us through our website contact page, um, and we can mention your business here on the podcast. Let's go for that answer. Hang on. Who's answering the question here? I know some of y'all got to know this. Give me a guess. Bum, 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 bum. There we go. Nancy got it. Ronald Reagan, just say no, was a popular anti-drug slogan under Ronald Reagan. Thank you, Nancy, for your answer. Let me put this one back in here. We'll save this last one for later. All right, I've got one more to follow up on. This kind of all on the same thread, so let's go ahead and just get right to it. Hit the right button. Boom, boom. Biden promotes marijuana pardons and scheduling review in Juneteenth proclamation. So this came out on June 19th, 2 days ago. President Biden has marked the holiday Juneteenth by issuing a proclamation that promotes his mass marijuana pardon and scheduling review directive. As the country commemorates the emancipation of enslaved Black people, the president's proclamation touts various efforts by his administration to address racial discrimination, including last year's cannabis clemency move. Quote, I have taken action on marijuana reform by pardoning prior District of Columbia and federal simple marijuana possession offenses and directed a review of marijuana scheduling, Biden said on the federal holiday, which was established under legislation he signed in 2021. The president has repeatedly promoted the cannabis actions, linking them to the administration's racial equality efforts. Speaking at a Martin Luther King Jr. Day hosted by the National Association and National Action Network, NAN, in January, for example, Biden said he was keeping his promise by providing relief to those who have been criminalized over cannabis. In February, Biden, mouth name doesn't taste good. Uh, in February, Biden marked the end of Black History Month by giving publicity to the cannabis clemency actions and highlighting the racial disparate impact racially desperate impact of marijuana enforcement. There we go. All right. Yep, we have a couple of other folks just joined us. We have Jennifer in to say hello. Hey, Jennifer. And DJ Gamecock is here as well. Thanks for coming on in, folks. Where was I? I think we're just about done with this article real quick here. In February, Bart, I read that line. Okay. The White House also argued that the president's pardons could lift social and economic barriers as part of a fact sheet that was released ahead of Biden's State of the Union address in February. Also that month, the president separately signed an executive order on promoting equity within the White House and federal agencies that also mentioned the earlier marijuana pardons. Biden issued a proclamation declaring April Second Chance Month for people who have served time in prison, and in the document, he took the opportunity to promote his marijuana pardons and address the collateral consequences of cannabis convictions. I mean, now, to hear the president actually talk about and address the collateral consequences of cannabis convictions uh, is pretty big. I mean, every president, for the most part, since Nixon has demonized it more and more and more. It seems every time they get a chance. Um, so I don't know who got into his ear because I mean it doesn't sound like some of the stuff he was saying during the elections, talking about rescheduling. Uh, and I'm not sure if he's clear on the difference. So that could be an issue. Anyway, let me finish up the last paragraph here, paragraph plus. The pardon affected several thousands of Americans who committed federal marijuana possession offenses, which the administrative review into cannabis scheduling is ongoing. Oh, wow. The review is ongoing. With respect to the scheduling review, the Department of Health and Human Services, and specifically Food and Drug Administration, is tackling the first part of the process, assessing the science of cannabis to determine whether it should be removed from Schedule 1 of the Controlled Substances Act. And there we have it. I mean, I would have to, interesting. Jimmy Carter favored decrim in '76. I would have to kind of look at that because um, I I know he was. I mean, basically, the two big ones that burned my butt, I guess is the way I want to phrase it, is Nixon and Reagan. I mean, those two really kind of ramped up. Nixon kind of like coined the phrase "war on drugs," um, but Reagan really weaponized I'm going to say it, weaponized the judicial system. Um, and created a real war, militarized our law enforcement, and created a real war on cannabis consumers. Um, and if you look at the prison rate growth, um, it started going up after Nixon, but at that point with Reagan, and it just really started going at a steep climb. The growth of the for-profit prisons in this country, we're on the rise. Don't get me going. But Jimmy, yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I follow somebody on Twitter who remembers Jimmy fondly and mentions him quite often. Um, and he was the probably our best bet over the past 50 years to have done anything. Um, and yeah, it's just, you don't think anything could happen. He was quoted in the 60s, that in the 1976 no grocers. Okay. See what you can find us. I'd like to hear some of his position and what you can find. Um, I mean, mind you, I was just kind of graduating high school back at about that time in 76. So, um, yeah, like Jimmy as a president, can't say I was really involved in politics at that point. I am going to do a real quick. Let's see what Wiki says about his cannabis policy. During the administration of, oh, this is pretty good, of President Carter in 77 to 81, States gave further consideration to the decriminalization of cannabis with the support of the president. However, law enforcement, conservative politicians, and grassroots parents groups opposed this measure. And the net result of the Carter administration was the continuation of the drug war and restrictions on cannabis, while at the same time, cannabis consumption in the United States reached historically high levels. Interesting stuff. Good subject. Thanks for bringing that up. Found that very interesting. All right. Well, that's kind of what we have even today. You hear some of these parent groups, and this is what's kind of scares me. You got a lot of these parent groups that are. Oh, let me see what else DJ Gamecock says here. Carter noted that when he was president, he wanted to decriminalize marijuana. When I was president in '79, I made a definitive speech about drugs, and I called for decriminalization of marijuana. Um, yeah, unfortunately, he couldn't do it, and I don't think anybody else has actually wanted to. I mean, some of the other uh, left-leaning presidents that you thought might have actually were worse than you would think. Um, but I mean, I've got to say that's pretty good news. And we've had some really big news in the past couple years with actual hearings in Congress about cannabis and presidential directives and pardons for the possession. Um, and a lot more. I'm seeing a lot actually this past week. A number of expungements in state like large. I want to say statewide, such and such states expunge like 40,000 cannabis convictions or something like that. Um, I'd have to go and look for some of the specifics on it. So there is movement in states outside South Carolina. Um, and like I don't want to say just outside because I mean Nancy Mace has proposed a descheduling bill, and when I spoke to her a couple months back, she reiterated that she would be refiling that bill in I guess a light version, um, whatever that means. I'm not quite sure, so we'll kind of see. Um, and there's and the surveys will tell us. You look at those pure forward surveys that a majority of South Carolinians support legalization for some poor purpose or another, whether it's medical, whether it's adult use. The numbers might vary, but for any of those, it's over 50% on across when you're looking across the board at at, at what voters would support. Um, and some of those numbers are pretty high, especially for medical. I mean, the support for medical in the state is probably, if I was to guess across like the different, across the aisle, I would have to say probably 70 to 75% on the Republican side as far as voters are concerned, and probably like 85, 90% or so on the Democratic side. Um, I don't know. Put it in the comments. Am I off? Am I about right on those numbers? I mean, that's kind of my thought when I talk to people. Yeah, there's some that oppose, but I think more support. I think more people agree with us that no one should go to jail for simple cannabis possession. No one should be arrested for simple cannabis possession. Uh, That's a great comment. I'm going to bring that one up again. And that's one of the things that just sort of really kind of drives me nuts. Jimmy, famous quote, decrim quote, penalties against possession of a drug should not be more damaging to an individual than the use of the drug itself. And where they are, they should be, and where they are, they should be changed. So, yeah, absolutely great point. It is, and you see that all the time, and that's why again I brought up earlier in the podcast about uh, the residual consequences, those continuing consequences that people are burdened by. Um, you know, the punishment is more harmful than what could happen by the substance itself. Uh, really puts a wrench in people's lives. And it seems like, every president or every, new sheriff in town seems to want to ratchet it up. And what's the easy bust? Cannabis. It's the easy bust because most people don't think it's a big deal um, until they get busted with it. Then it's a big deal. Um, because the big deal is not having cannabis. The big deal is getting caught with cannabis. Um, so, because, as I'll bring it back up again. The penalties are definitely more damaging to an individual than the drug itself when we talk about cannabis arrests, especially here in South Carolina, because other states are starting to see the light and decriminalizing or legalizing. Um, and when we was talking about Jimmy in that Wikipedia, talking about parents groups and things like that, it scares me a little bit that these folks don't realize that most of the people that get arrested for simple cannabis possession are young people. I mean, I think it starts maybe from some of the graphs I've seen. The arrest started around that 15 age and ramp up till about 20. Um, your early 20s, and then it starts to trickle down. It used to it dropped down pretty quickly. Now those arrests are sort of a little higher for more years because people aren't giving it up. They're not quitting. Um, but again, it also sort of, to me, alludes to the targeting of the enforcement that they have. So instead of protecting our children from the marijuana, they're instead endangering our children um, with the law enforcers. They're endangering our children with the justice system um, because the punishment is worse than the drug itself. So, all right, we're kind of done with the articles. I thought I'd talk a little bit more about those tonight. Um, but that gives me time to talk about a couple of other things. Again, if you do get it, I want to bring this up one more time because I have it here in front of me. Don't forget, if you get a chance, go look for this on eBay or Amazon or wherever you find used books nowadays. Marijuana, a signal of misunderstanding. The official report of the National Commission on Marijuana and Drug Abuse. With a special foreword by Raymond P. Schaefer, chairman, who was the chairman of that commission in 1972. Well, this is actually a first run copy, so that came out way back when. All right, let me put my book down before I forget what I'm doing here. I'm kind of watching um, comments. I see a comment come in from Cocky Talk here. South Carolina can use the surplus from taxing it to bring the state up to date. I'm not sure, but if I remember correctly, I mean, South Carolina is not really too concerned about the money because uh, I think their budget had like a surplus the other year and they sent people some extra money back. And they're less concerned, it seems like, about actually bringing things up to date. Oh, we don't need money to bring things up to date. We don't need no updating. But yeah, I like that thought. Definitely like that thought. They could. I mean, you look at the way that some of the other states have taxed it, and the amount of revenue that it's brought in um, to help the communities. To help the communities, they've built schools. They've probably built shelters. I mean, I couldn't tell you the millions of dollars that taxation on the legal cannabis industry has brought in. And on top of that, consumers can have something with a certificate of analysis so they know what they're getting. So they know that it's safe, it's not been tainted with fentanyl, which police keep warning us is going to happen. I always thought that was kind of, BS until recently an actual advocate mentioned knowing some firsthand knowledge of that happening. That scares the crap out of me. I wouldn't want my cannabis tainted with anything like that, with anything really. Um, okay, back when I was young, we might have sprinkled some, oh, I forget what they called it then, uh, Quaaludes in there or something. I don't know. But yeah, I want safe and I want to know what it is. And this is interesting enough. We had a conversation with a researcher a couple of weeks ago, our board, um, researching reducing cannabis usage. And we were sort of interested on sort of why they, they, people were wanting to reduce their cannabis usage and what options were sort of the um, options they had kind of thing. And the one thing that I thought was sort of intriguing, what we brought up was, if people maybe they want to stop cannabis because they're just feeling disconnected. They're not, they something like, and so their game is to the research was into reducing usage, and our question was, well, what strain are they using? And maybe they prefer something that's, yeah, uh, we talk about indica or sativa or hybrid leaning. Maybe if they don't like blah, 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 they want to try this. And then you have to also consider terpene profiles. And so we start getting in all this other stuff. And they're going like, um, we don't know. Yeah, they get their marijuana wherever they get their marijuana, and we're just researching. And I think they offered. I think I don't know if they're offering a pharmaceutical as a substitute. Yes, they were. I remember because uh, one of our board members sort of talked about the side effects of that substance. But anyway, um, did find some of it interesting, and it was an enlightening conversation for me as well because I I rarely think about people wanting to cut down or things like that. Um, and it made me realize that maybe there are some people that have that reason that they want to cut back a little bit or something like that. And so the research is intriguing, if nothing else. But I think a lot of people, what it is when I'm saying thinking that people are cutting back is because they're smoking the wrong strain at the wrong time or something like that, and it's affecting their day in a negative way. um oh, you don't want that at that time of day. No, you need this at that time. You need something more uplifting at that time. So I don't know what all those answers are, but again, I found it intriguing that the research going into some of that locally here in the Charleston area. All right, let me see if I have any other kind of comments I want to look at. I think the state will not address it unless the feds make it. I've been saying for a long time, and I'm going to say it again tonight only because I think it's contrary to what some of the other advocates say. And it's also, I guess, kind of contrary to what some of the other states have done. But we're not the other states, we're South Carolina. And I believe probably the most effective way forward is by doing local ballot initiatives, voter ballot initiative, get it gotten out, getting those signatures, getting it on a ballot, and decriminalizing at a local municipal level. Um, you know, I hear the other advocates saying, "Oh, you've got to do medical first. You've got to do medical first," and you can't do medical municipally. I mean, when you talk about decrim, and decriminalization is really a bit of a misnomer word. You're not making it not a crime anymore. Um, you are just affecting the penalty phase of it. You are making it so it's no longer a misdemeanor or a felony crime. It is a civil citation that you might get if, or what I like, and I've seen done in quite a bit in Ohio, I'll mention it again, is the no fine, no time, no court cost decriminalization. Real similar to what I had just mentioned from this book in 1972 to where, yeah, if it's in public, it can be confiscated from you as contraband. But you're not going to be paying a ticket. You're not going to be, once you tie money into it, that's the link into the judicial system. And that's why we like a no fine, no time, no court cost. But decriminalization does not end it from being a crime. It just affects the penalty phase. It affects whether you're going to be going to jail for the next 30 days or whether you're going to, you know, walk away without your bag of weed and told, don't come back here, don't let me see you again with weed. Or depending on the location or the decrim ordinance, you know, you pay a $25 or $100 civil citation ticket, uh, something like that. Until there's federal descheduling, no, I don't see any other option for South Carolina but to really move forward with the municipal decrim. And that's a lot of work for the voters. That's a lot of work for the citizens, for the activists. It's really a lot of work. And there is, I mean, I got to admit, there is medical marijuana legislation, and it is moving through the legislature, albeit slowly. Somebody here can tell me whether it's been 8 years, 9 years, 7 years, somewhere in there. I don't know if we're in the seventh year of the, and I don't know which iteration of the Compassionate Care Act. Um, and that's going to help a couple of people gain access to not flower, not homegrown. Um, you know, it's going to tinctures and vape stuff, and I don't care for any of that. But anyway, and a very limited number of qualifying conditions. I mean, it's going to help a handful of people, to be quite honest with you. It's going to help a handful of people. It's not going to keep our teenagers and young 20-year-olds out of jail. It's not going to keep them from getting saddled and yoked with you know, these residual consequences that are going to follow them along for the rest of their life. You know, I mean, I don't know of anything else where you can make such a simple. What's the best way to say it for a teenager? A simple indiscretion of smoking cannabis. How dare you? Just that owe you with something that's going to like affect you for the rest of your freaking life. Um, so yeah, yeah, it's not going to do anything for them. Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that the medical does get passed. I hope that in future years they expand upon that. I hope in future years they can add flower to that. But to be quite honest with you, I think the best way to help the people of South Carolina, the most people in South Carolina, is to deschedule, is to decriminalize. Even if we have to go town by town, city by city with these ordinances, with these petitions, or hopefully get a city council member to sponsor one and let it get voted on. Um, I don't know. I've been saying it over and over, and I will say one thing. One of the things that was sort of that held us up before was the COVID. Another one was I would get people from all different towns across the state saying, "Can I get a petition for my town?" and I didn't know how to do it. Somebody else drafted the petitions that we have. I wasn't sure exactly how to look at the town at the new towns, ordinance codes and find out the right numbers to plug it into the right space. But I happened to talk to somebody who was an attorney not too long ago, and they sort of said, "Oh, you can do it this way and that way, and it can be edited later to fit it in the exact right spot," and blah blah blah. So, and as far as the petitions that I have, I can kind of just copy those, pop in those new numbers that we research and find, and start getting more petitions drafted, so that maybe we can find folks in different communities to actually want to push the effort and get out there and start collecting signatures and getting their town to be the who's going to be the first to decriminalize in South Carolina. Uh, that's what I'd like to see. A competition. Who's going to be the first to get their signatures and be the first town in South Carolina to decriminalize, whether it's through voter initiative or whether it's through a city council initiative. Um, we don't care as long as we get an initiative going. All right. Questions, comments, thoughts on any of that stuff before I get to our last question of the night? And then after that, I will talk a little bit about some upcoming events. So do not go away yet. All right. Let me just kind of go through comments here a little bit. Uh, Uh, DJ Game Cop sort of mentions that, yes, South Carolina did pass a very weak medical bill way back in the 80s. Um, but I think it was something that never got funded, or I forget how that happened. But yeah, it just never really happened, never got initiated. Um, don't think it'll ever reach a ballot. One thing nice with a voter initiative, the government can't control it. It's the voters. If you get the signatures, if you get enough qualifying signatures on that petition, when I say qualifying, they have to be registered voters, they have to be residents of that community. So a good example, Charleston, the city of Charleston, they would have to be a registered voter and, live specifically in the city of Charleston, which means paying their city taxes or the municipal taxes to Charleston. Charleston, if you all know the area, is kind of a patchwork quilt. Uh, you can have somebody across the street from you or a neighbor or whatever living in either um, the town of James Island or um, I think parts of Johns Island are the city of Charleston. Some of James Island, where I am, is also an unincorporated county area. So it's like a patchwork quilt. So finding those voters in Charleston is a little challenging. As a matter of fact, the only way you can really kind of tell, I do it quite often when I was kind of doing the petitions here on the James Island, you would have to ask people what color their garbage can was. Okay, you're city of Charleston. Great. Oh, you got the brown one? No, you're somebody else. Yeah. No, or maybe I have it backwards. Maybe the brown one is Charleston. I forget now. But yeah, you have to know the color of their garbage can. I mean, you can't even look it up on the voter rolls. You know, it's a challenge. What color is your garbage can? That's how you tell if they're city of Charleston or like town of James Island or unincorporated. Craziness. All right. Last question of the night before I forget this one. I was going through these. So yeah, if you get your ballot, if you get your signatures, then it goes to the voter board, and they have to verify all the signatures, and everything has to be written legibly so they can understand the addresses and make sure that it's a registered voter at that address within that municipality. And then once you get the certification that you have enough signatures, it goes on the ballot. There's really no stopping it. That's what the beauty of a voter initiative. a voters, voter initiated ballot initiative is the government can't really stop it. They try, and it's happened in places. I mean, I think there's also been states that have like decriminalized by vote, and the governor got, nah, I don't think so. Um, but they eventually overcome it. All right, let me hit the next talking point you have here. Cocky Talk says, I just feel until the feds come, nothing will happen because most of the people in the state are backwards. I can't always argue that. I think sometimes just getting the signatures or the people are just passionate about, they really don't care one way or another. Man, yeah, nobody should go to jail for it, but I ain't put my name on there. I don't want to get on some government watch list. The cops will come for me then. My boss will make me pee in a cup. Uh, and as far as passing legislation at the federal, at the state level, yeah, getting McMaster to sign it would be nearly impossible. All right, Nancy's got to let my people grow. It's just like any other crop. It's better than most crops, in my opinion. What you got, DJ? I see South Carolina Senator Tom Davis, author of the medical bill, has said that people do not want recreational. I've heard him say that. Why not let the voters of South Carolina decide on the matter? A vote must be authorized by South Carolina General Assembly. Yeah, I mean, and Tom Davis actually submitted a bill to let the voters say if they wanted to have medical, I believe. I don't know about recreational. Um, and that bill never moved out of committee. Um, and again, it would have only been an advisory vote or a informational vote. It would carry no legislative power to it to actually move anything in that direction. Um, but I think he was doing that because he was seeing resistance in moving his bill this year. So he was going to like try and get the people to chime in on it. Nancy, definitely need a new cover ER. Oh, there we go. We need a new governor. Thank you for correcting that. I would have been curious on that myself. Cool. Yes, we do. All right, folks. We are really down to the last minutes here, so I'm going to do this last question, and then we're going to get into our coming events. I'm sorry for rambling on, but I wanted to get to your comments and make sure we included your comments in our conversation. Which U.S. president tried to decriminalize marijuana in 1977? We've just talked about this one. Was it Gerald Ford, Jimmy Carter, George Bush, or Richard Nixon? Answer: Jimmy Carter. Right there. I didn't even know that this was coming up there, DJ Gamecock, but I'm not even giving you a chance to answer because we all just talked about that. Cool, cool. All right, coming events, coming events. We've got two coming events this weekend. Friday night, weather permitting, I will be again out at James Island County Park Reggae Night. I requested the night off. I work in the park in the evening, and instead, I will be going and enjoying the music and setting up my little chair and a couple of my brochure stands and some lights so people can see me, a couple of signs. And I got to tell you, just came in, shipped in yesterday, I'm sorry, 10,000 new stickers. Want a sticker? Want a brochure? Come out and find me Thursday or Friday night. Reggae night, James Island County Park. I think they open up the gates at about 7:30. Get your tickets online. They're like $10 if you buy them in advance, $15 day of event. And then on Saturday starting 3 o'clock in the afternoon at the refinery in Charleston. I think that's something like 1600 Cumming Street. No. What's the address? I just had it somewhere a few minutes ago. The One Way Forward Festival. One Way Forward Festival. Let me get you just a little bit more information on that here. There it is. I'm going to drop the ticket link for you here in the chat. And this is going to be an event this coming Saturday. I'll share it online just so you can see this. Starting at, I believe, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, doors open, runs till about 11 o'clock at night. My understanding there are 9 different performers coming out to this event. There are still tickets available. So, and I tell you what, I'm going to be out there with brochures and did I tell you? What is that? Stickers. So I'll be out there on Saturday with some stickers and some brochures, and you all are welcome to come out, participate, and enjoy for a good cause. This is an event to support and to unite cannabis supporters. Um, I keep talking about the brochure. I want to mention something if I haven't mentioned this to you recently. The reason I am always so like anxious to give out, or not anxious, but excited to give out our brochures is inside on this panel right here is what we call the NORML Foundation Freedom Card. And what if you read the top, it'll explain to you that the Freedom Card helps you invoke your constitutionally protected rights. So you cut out this bottom section with the little dotted line and the scissor next to it. Cut that out, keep it with your ID in case you ever stop by law enforcement. You hand that to them, and I tell you, study it. You will learn your rights under the Constitution. Even the Supreme Court says, do not talk to police. They are looking for a reason to incriminate you. Don't give them a reason. Don't incriminate yourself. Do not talk to a police. My favorite amendment, Sixth Amendment. I don't know why exactly it's my favorite, but at least when you're confronted by law enforcement, Sixth Amendment, invoke your Sixth Amendment right to not answer questions without an attorney present. I invoke my right not to answer any questions without an attorney present. They're looking for a way to criminalize you. You don't want to say the wrong thing. Let your lawyer do the talking. And if they continue to ask you questions after you invoke your Sixth Amendment right, guess what they're doing? They're violating your rights. So, all right. That is it. Oh, one last thing I want to talk about coming events. I see we're already at 8:03, so I apologize for running over. Uh, Beach cleanup. July 23rd is a Sunday. We're going to be out there on a Sunday, July 23rd, doing a beach cleanup on Folly Beach, a beach sweep. We are doing it in conjunction with the folks at the South Carolina Aquarium. I'm not sure which group at the aquarium, but there's I think a Turtle Watch group that we are doing this in conjunction with. Actually, the person that plays Toby the Turtle at some of the some of the beach sweep cleanups and stuff like that is the person that I've been communicating with and helping organize this with us. And that is Vanessa Trexler. She will be on our program. Oh, geez, I think that's going to be July 19th, just a few days before the event. I might have that date wrong, but it's the Wednesday before our beach cleanup. And the beach cleanup, again, the plan is get there, be at the beach by 9 o'clock. We'll do a beach sweep from about 9 till you've had enough. We figure an hour, hour and a half, maybe, or something like that. While you're out beach sweeping and cleaning up and stuff like that, we're going to have you have a bunch of brochures with you in case anybody says, "Hey, what you doing?" We ask if you're a member, wear your badge. If you have a shirt, wear your shirt. If somebody starts talking to you about your shirt or your badge or whatever marijuana wear that you're wearing, um, hand them a brochure. Mention the Freedom Card inside. If they have a teenager with them, give them an extra brochure so that teenager can have their Freedom Card as well. We want our young people to be protected from excessive enforcement of simple cannabis possession laws. Anyway, all right. So, and then after the beach sweep, We're just gonna hang at the beach. We're gonna chill out. Plan the day. Bring the fam. Pack a picnic. We're gonna have some fun. All righty, 8:06. I've talked enough. Those are our upcoming events in the next this weekend. Two things happening. You'll see me at both. And then July 23rd is the next planned. I believe July 14th is also a reggae night, so kind of mark that on your calendar as well. We'll be out there, weather permitting, at that one. All right. Get that link of the One Way Forward tickets before we kind of close out. I'm just going to say thank you all for being here. And you know I appreciate you every week that when you show up. And we'll be back here again next Wednesday, 7 p.m. Have yourself a great night. Bye now.